as of the moment, Biden is leading Trump in the electoral vote 237 to 214. And it basically looks like Biden's going to win Michigan, as 97% of are reporting that Biden is up 60,000 votes. He's also turning Arizona blue for the first time since 1996. And basically, the Trump cabinet is suing Pennsylvania and Michigan from stopping the counting of ballots. And it seems that Biden is going to win the election at this point, unless there's some unforeseen miracle that changes Michigan red as well as Arizona. I don't see it happening. So basically, Biden is going to be the next presidential elect. I want to talk a little bit about the future of this country now with Biden as the president of the United States, and talk about the seemingly progressive left that appear to be progressive, but they aren't, that are behind Biden, which I find ironic. With Donald Trump, we saw an egotistical sadist who had bouts of paranoia, bouts of aggression. And because he's such a narcissist, this actually helped to an extent from him creating more conflicts in the Middle East, for example, even though the CIA is behind the coup in South America at this point. And also you had Syria and Libya and continued bombing of Afghanistan. In fact, with under 4 years of Trump, he dropped basically more bombs than Obama did in 8 years, which was remarkable. But the one thing you can say positively for Trump was that no new wars were conducted. And they tried, basically, Israel and Saudi Arabia really pushed him to try to enter the conflict with Iran, and he didn't bite. He also was trying to enter a plea agreement or a friendship deal with the Taliban in Afghanistan and pulling all the troops out. And you know it's bad when the Taliban is actually pushing for Trump to win instead of Biden. But with Biden winning now, and that's not a defense for Trump, by the way, I don't vote. So I'm basically just trying to tell you that in certain respects, Trump is actually good for our foreign policy to an extent. Okay, to an extent. Still bad. We still have a horrendous foreign policy regardless. And of course, his handling of the coronavirus was terrible, but that goes both ways. I thought the Democratic and Republican parties failed the country in general. And we have yet to witness the real ramifications. I'm talking about the economic ramifications are going to be felt here in New York, especially. I'm just going to tell you, we are in big trouble in the next 12 months. Okay. Biden seems to have won the presidency. What do we expect? I expect a revert back to the old Bush-Obama neoconservative policies regarding the geopolitics of the Middle East region. I also see the continued degradation of our economic regress in this country. Biden is basically a Wall Street establishment official. And with the full support of the legacy media behind Biden, and which you have 6 corporations that basically control all of the media in this country, or 90% of it. General Electric, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, and CBS. And these are corporations that cater to the corporate lobbyists of this country, both from the Pentagon and from the State Department, as well as foreign lobbyists themselves. So we're going to get the full gamut of the corporate industries behind Biden. And this is a corporate industrialists of the past 45 years. He's a real establishment man. That's the reason why they would rather have Biden than Trump. Trump is an egotistical, unpredictable individual. Biden is clearly a major player regarding the political atmosphere of the United States. And that's who the corporate industrialists really want. They really want Clinton. But because she's such a loathsome individual, nobody really basically affiliated with her, not even the middle class or the progressive left voted for her. That's why Trump won. I think Trump was shocked basically to win the election. And to make it that with the disaster of the 4 years of Trump, basically in this country, it looked like he was basically trying to throw it away. He almost won. What does that say about the establishment left in this country? They're basically, there's nothing left of them, right? So you have these basically people from the right supporting Biden. That's the reason why he was chosen over Sanders. You know, Sanders, at the very least, was somewhat of a progressive to an extent where Biden is basically not. And why do you think he chose Kamala Harris? You know, who's a real rigid prosecutor who doesn't care about the African American community? I mean, she's a puppet, just like the Shah of Iran was a puppet of the West and implemented as the leader of Iran after they basically ousted Mohammad Mossadegh in 1953, who was democratically elected by the people. And it was basically the CIA who was behind the revolution and every coup that ousted Mossadegh. And then came Rava Pahlavi, who continued to degrade Iran to the point where the religious sector and the middle class basically ousted him with the 1979 revolution, in which he ran away, tucked his tail and ran. That's basically what's happening here in the United States. Trump, of course, won't go away quietly because he's basically a narcissist and can't admit defeat. But it was basically, ironically, the mail-in ballots that he chose to rail against months prior to the election that's going to doom him in. Whether you want to believe that the mail-in ballots are fictitious or that during a late night grab last night that these ballots are basically illegal, whatever conspiracy theory, it won't matter because his suits against Pennsylvania and Michigan are going to fail. Biden is going to win. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And of course, the fringe elements of the right are going to conduct reprisals if Trump pushes them in that direction. And basically, that's what he tried to do last night when Twitter deleted his tweet that the election was being stolen from him. And that happened at 2:30 in the morning. And Twitter basically deleted his tweet. But the thought's already there. He put the process out last night. And you get these fringe elements of the right who basically are just, mentally inept. And they're reactionary. They're reactionists. Much in a way, just like Antifa are, you could claim that you're anti-fascist, but your actions speak that you are a fascist. You don't care for free speech, only speech that agrees with you. And yeah, big proponents of the civil rights community you are, that you basically voted for Biden and Kamala Harris, who are basically proponents against the civil rights movement. They're not for the African American community whatsoever. Ironically, Trump was doing more for the African American community than Biden and Kamala ever was. And if you don't believe me, go back to the Obama presidency and you ask the African American communities of Michigan, Chicago, California about what they thought of him after 8 years. You're going to get a repeat of that with Biden and Harris. Like I said, I'm not promoting Trump. I think he's a detestable individual and his politics regarding the United States was abhorrent, but you're going to see what real establishment politics are really like, because that's exactly what you're going to get with Biden and Kamala Harris. And of course, I don't think we need to go into any more detail about what's going to remain the same. Continued degradation of our civil sector regarding education, regarding Social Security, regarding healthcare. This will be continually depleted to satisfy the coffers of Wall Street and the Pentagon. the continued conflicts of Syria, the continued conflicts in Iraq, the continued conflicts of Afghanistan, and maybe the looming war with Iran. Because if you don't remember, Biden actually is an avowed Zionist, and he basically is an extension of the Zionist lobby. He's a full supporter of the AIPAC lobby as well. And guess what? He's also a major funder of the Gulf. Basically, just about every single president of the last 50 years, right? Nothing's going to change, not for the betterment of this country, which I found surprising because the Biden basically got 70 million votes. I think it's basically 70 million and a half, which was more than Obama had in his two elections. So also we'll see a repeat of continued Wall Street policies, major funding to the major banks, Goldman Sachs, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, corporate lobbyists from the Pentagon, military industrial sector, LG3 Technologies, Boeing, Raytheon. They'll see a jump in percentages. The slow degradation of like the Wall Street medium bonds. We'll see a degradation of 401k 401k bonds themselves, which we saw a late jump with Obama, but early in his presidency, because of the Bush policies, we saw a degradation in this area, which we're going to see in the next 2 years. The economy will suffer because the social sectors are going to suffer. The eviction rates that are going to happen after December, when the rents aren't paid and the rent policies are up and the rent suspensions are lifted by Governor Cuomo. The homelessness rates will expedite within the next 6 months because there are no jobs left here in New York and elsewhere. The complete degradation of the welfare programs in this country. Homelessness centers closing down because they can't maintain maintenance in the centers anymore, because they can't hire these individuals because they can't pay them, because of the rising rates of homelessness, because of the rising rates of the rising percentages of job losses in this country. Are they coming back? No. The corporate industries have long been gone, even under the Clinton administration, under the NAFTA Act, and with the these corporations that don't want to pay health care and don't want to unionize because basically they have to pay more. They're going overseas to China, to the Philippines, Indonesia, where they could pay these people $2 an hour, slave wages. Have you seen what they're doing in these countries? Living in cubicles like rats? Go watch Vice documentaries made, 10 years ago. They were reporting this. That's basically when they were good. Reporting on these issues 10 years ago. Okay? You think it's gotten better? No, it's gotten worse. And that's basically what's going to happen here, because evidently New York is going to end up just like Detroit. Why? Because all the corporate industries and all the businesses are basically closing up shop, and all the businesses that were looted and robbed because you have basically these stupid fringe elements from the left who are, destroying these businesses. Now they can't open up. Why? Because the coronavirus policies and because of the destruction of these properties from the fringe left, supported by de Blasio, who's an abhorrent mayor. Not because he's a Democrat, it just so happens that he is a Democrat and he's an establishment person. But these Democratic cities like California, New York, who are going to see exponential rises in homelessness. And if you haven't looked, take one look at the tech sector located south of the state of California, and you're going to see the homelessness rates. And these are not drug addicts. These are people with MAs and BAs in business and engineering, right? They can't get a job, or basically they're working two jobs and they're living in their cars. This ain't tent city, where you have, a lot of people who are down on their luck, who are basically using drugs and drink because that's all they can do to, postpone their problems or suspend them. There are actual people who are clean of drugs and alcohol, who are living inside their cars, or who are living in tents and parks. That's coming. And that's coming to every state in this country, because you won't have the guts to admit the problem is not a left or right problem. It's a partisan problem. It's a problem of the system of government. And because you people, and I sound like a broken record at this point, it's because the citizenry of this country are so fractured and they're so polarized within their politics and their religion and their racism, that you're basically conflicted with one another, and that you're conflicting with one another, which you should basically act as a singular unit in which you would have tens of millions and the support of the people. You don't have the support of the people. No matter what you say, Antifa, you're anti-left, anti-fascist, you don't have the support of the people. You have the support of the fringe elements of Seattle, of New York, of Michigan, New Hampshire. So what? These green-haired, backward, obese-bellied people with disorganized, they're not even organized, dressed in black. No one fears you. You're not overthrowing any government. You could overthrow a police department because they basically allowed you to do so. But if, God forbid, the National Guard came, you're crushed. And for the fringe elements of the right who are supporting suppressing the speech of the left, or the left suppressing the speech of the right, in which YouTube did in the months prior to the election, basically got rid of all these fringe elements of the right, whom I don't agree, but I don't want to suppress their speech. Well, you fringe elements of the left who support that, you're not safe. You're next. And you're going to see that with the Biden administration. You're next. And you're going to be quashed rather easily. And you're not going to have the backing of the public because of your stupid antics, because you want to destroy the businesses. Yeah, I don't care for Walmart. I don't care for big corporate industries like Target. I could care less. But what you did was twofold. Yeah, you basically shuttered down these businesses, but they'll be right back up. But guess what you did? You basically destroyed the livelihoods of the very common people who you want on your side. But you're lost. And basically what's going to happen is that the public is going to really get disgusted with you, and they're going to back the fringe elements of the far right. In time, anyway, because that's exactly what's going to happen with your antics. But like I said, this is not an advocacy for the fringe right. The fringe right are just as ignorant. You're nationalists, by the way. You don't care for the country. Yeah, you use God as country as your back burner, or the flag that you wave. But you're not Americans. You're nationalists. You don't care about this country. What you want is a caliphate, basically. Not so much in the way of the Islamic caliphate, but what you want is a far right-wing John Hagee version of the country. That's what you want. Basically, a Revelations, end of the world type prophecy. These mega churches that are behind these evangelical far-right pundits, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, you know, so many of these people, real ignorant idiots that use the gun as their phallic symbol, so to speak, to prove that they're tough. You're not. You're cowards. And basically, again, you also don't have the power of the people behind you. We're sick and tired of you. There's more of us than you from the fringe elements of the left and right. And we just basically are disgusted with the both of you, but we don't have a voice and we don't want to push it. And that's basically where the fall of the country relies on, right? The subjugation of the people like us who really want a progressive nation. But we haven't been a progressive nation. We haven't been that way for 70 years. We're a nationalist nation. We're an evangelical backed nation. No matter that you think that Biden is a progressive, he's not. He's an extension of the right. That's the reason why he was chosen to be the Democratic nominee over Sanders. That's why Clinton was chosen as nominee over Sanders in 2016. Why? Because Clinton and Biden are both establishment right. Don't believe me? You're going to see it in the next 4 years. Mark my words.